It's live Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we tackle the tough issues, the customer experience, whether it's the front of the store, the back of the store, or somewhere in the middle. The better the experience, the more they come back to you for everything they need when they need it. And I am very fortunate to have a great network of friends and connections that come on the show weekly to share with you what they've done or what they are doing to improve the customer experience at your stores. Never any fluff, always actionable items that you can use in your store tomorrow. My hope is at the end of the show, it's either going to confirm that you're on the right track, or maybe you're scratching your head and you say, you know, I've struggled with that. It might be worth having a conversation with one or two of those folks on the show I watched last night. So that's pretty much where we're at. And the reason I wanted to do this show now is because it's come to my attention that I walk into a lot of stores. I'm in dealerships every week, sometimes multiple dealers in a single day. And the recurring theme is that there are a lot of stores not utilizing artificial intelligence when it's something that's been around for a long time and it can make our lives that much easier. You know, we're relatively smart people, but if you add the five of us together, and if we want to craft something that is really good, we could spend some time putting our heads together to come up with it. And grammatically, it might not be as good as it could be. Whereas when you learn how to leverage artificial intelligence, whether it's something that's automated or manual that you interact with, it can do 100 times or more better, faster than we could collectively put together. And you could really improve your customer's experience by putting your best foot forward, utilizing AI. So welcome to the show, gentlemen and lady. Why don't we go from the top, Michael, around like this and give us a little bit of background as to what brought you here and what your experience is.
Well, with AutoGenie AI, we started developing that over a year or two ago, and really have just started releasing it, coming out of beta, where we have our AI able to answer telephone calls, answer messages, schedule appointments for people, answer their questions, act as like an operator for a dealership. So if someone's calling and they're looking for sales, they get sales. They're looking for service, they can book an appointment, they can ask questions. And then there's so many other layers of that, kind of like when you think of like a knowledge graph for an AI that really understands auto repair for a dealership. And that's kind of what we've been working on. And that's AutoGenie AI.
Excellent. Welcome. David.
So I'm David Rozek. I'm a marketing director for a group of 7 different locations. It's the Bill Walsh Automotive Group. I've been working with Michael on and off for the past couple of years on the AutoGenie side, although I've worked with Michael before on many other projects and other companies as well, and sat on different boards with him. The AutoGenie project came across my bow a couple of years ago. I had a strong dislike for AI, because I truly believe in the human touch for everything, because I don't really always feel that AI can do what we can do. I kind of see AI as that vendor who walks in the room and he's telling us the best practices, but he's never worked in the sales or service department. He's never worked in the office. And that's how I see AI. I think of it as asking a question and really never knows the answer. But then I realized a wonderful thing, that there was different types of AIs, and that each one of them needed to meet specialists like us, and that we needed to kind of give our thoughts to it and then train it on it so that it could give human-like responses. So I realized it was a whole team of them that I had to put together to do our job. And then it takes us really to navigate it with it, to help it cook, because it really can't on its own. It needs us. But everybody that's on this call is an expert in their field, and AI really needs us, but we need it just as much. So I'll move on to Tim.
Well, and David, I will tell you right now that the only thing I'll disagree with is you said we're an expert in our field. There's nobody on this call, and there's actually nobody in the world right now who's an expert on how business is changing today.
That's
at
true.
the hand of many technologies, artificial intelligence being a wide, like the biggest folder in the drawer, right? And it grows every day. So, I mean, I say that with respect, and I'll just say that, how I got here was, Paul, you and I, we have several mutual friends. I've been on your show before. We've talked about this before, and I get to hang out with Wendy every Wednesday on the human side of AI. So that might be why I'm here. But I would just say real quick, I mean, the thing we do at Brain Trust is we help dealers take across how many ever stores they have. They may have 6, they may have 1, they may have 160. And with that, we give them one platform, one place where machine learning before AI, because it's actually behind the AI is machine learning. And I think Michael will agree with me on this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole lot of Python. There's a lot of machine learning that's happening behind the scenes before a bot is answering a question or telling you what to do. But to the point David said already, I think the one point you made is we have to understand that AI is not capable, no matter how much reasoning it has, to understand body language, to understand empathy, to give a shit about what sports your kids play. And that's where car dealers for more than a century now have excelled, is understanding their community and understanding their customer. And that's where technology should play a role today, not to simply automate or supplant humans. And that's what I believe.
Agreed.
In addition to, wonderfully said. Wendy.
So I'm Wendy Reeves. I'm a car brat. I've been in the industry for many years, and my passion for BDC and my passion for getting people to understand the role and the benefit to having a BDC or internet sales department, it goes all the way back to 20 years ago when 1/3 of our phone ups got into the CRM, right? And the BDC became the CRM police, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I like about AI is I like that it's already helping us. And it has been really for years, but we didn't recognize it till somebody slapped a label on it. We've always been looking for ways to improve the customer experience and to be more relevant with our outreach to our buyers, and to just give them a better customer experience. So what I like about AI, and this is why we started the human side of AI a year ago, is it's a bunch of us that have different roles in our industry with a love for making things better, with a desire to make things better, to improve the customer experience. I'm really sorry. I can hear a lot of background. Paul, can you guys hear that?
Yep.
Yeah. Did it help last time when Paul muted or no? I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll try to go fast because it's kind of distracting, but it takes a village. Whatever it is, it takes a village. That's better, Paul. Now I don't hear it anymore. So I like the idea that we've started collaborations where people that have different roles in the industry express their beliefs, whether or not they're ready to adopt. But more importantly, I think it's a conversation we have to keep having, and that this is a great topic. And the reason I'm here is because I want to join in the conversation as it relates to BDC. And, it took us so many years for people to approve of the BDC and not just throw us back in a broom closet with no windows and et cetera, and to realize that we're a vital part of the dealership in both the service lane and in the sales department. So we have to start our dealers where they're at. As BDC managers and as BDC professionals, business development, B2B or B2C, we have to be able to show them where they're at. And I do a lot of consulting with my BDMs and other leaders of the service BDCs that I work with. And if they're not buying in, then I just find out where they're at and find a way to get in. And that's why I'm here.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Right. So on the sales side of things, we get a lot of leads. Okay. And it used to be that individual people responded to the leads manually. Now we have a little bit more help because we have either AI that engages the person that's on your website or the person that starts a conversation with the store to find out things before they even become a lead. So, Michael, what are some of the ways that you're seeing? My wife just sent me a really funny text. What?
Now you got to share with us.
Yeah, you got to share. Come on now. or if it's that good, maybe not. That's okay, though.
My wife accuses me of sometimes having the television on too loud or the computer on too loud. And sometimes she has the TV on too loud also. So we have a neighbor that lives at the end named Diane. And she just said, I was joking with her the other day, yesterday, and I said, Diane called and she asked if you could turn the TV down. So she just sent me a text. Diane called and asked if I could turn the volume down on the computer. Guess you got to be here. It was funny here. So back to the question, back to you, Michael. So when people engage with the store initially, what are some of the ways that you're seeing some of the best practices where they're able to engage them better and pull them in?
Well, the first part is, like making the customer happy. And when you think about when you're calling a dealership or you're calling any business, one of the things that you really hate is when you have to listen to this long message. And then after the message, you have to hit like press 1 for this or press 2 for that or press 3, and then you get sent over and then you're in another voice tree and you're waiting for somebody to answer the phone, or then you have to leave a message. And so that whole type of engagement where, let's just get rid of that. Let's just say, you're calling the business, and whether you want service, you want sales, you want to see, like, do you do tires? How do we get a tow? Do you have that F-150 in red? All those types of questions to have, just to have it answered, and just let's get rid of all the voicemail. And I think that's really where, you have that, happy customer. And then the other side of it, you have, let's say, that service tech where, he's busy, he's on the phone, he's making sales, he's working on cars, he's doing all this other work. And phone call doesn't get answered all the time. And then it goes to voicemail. And then that person who's calling might just call somebody else. How many missed calls or drop calls do you get when that voicemail comes on and someone just hangs up? We all have that experience. So let's say if we can get rid of all that type of, the whole philosophies, every time you call, you're getting your answer.
You're getting transferred again.
Yeah. Yeah, no more. Let's try to seize alter. Now, obviously, if you're calling, you're like, hey, I want to see if there's any job openings. Well, then you could, the AI would then act like an operator and say, okay, well, I'll send you over to, the human resources department, or maybe it's a marketing call, listen to the marketing people. But for as far as like the customer goes, and it's like an auto repair shop, dealership, when someone calls, there's not a wait, there's not a voicemail, you're not skipping through to 3 different phone trees. You're I want to bring my car in, I need to get my new tires, and boom, then the auto team would be like, oh, I see you're calling from blah blah blah, are you calling about your Honda Odyssey? And then you'd be like, yes. Like, okay, when would you like to bring it in? And then done. I mean, it goes right into their CRM, and then it follows through the rest of whatever interactions that their normal CRM would get if a human had entered it. And so that's just one example of just making it, happy customers. They're calling, they just want it, they have a need, and you solve that need, and you just get rid of all that voicemail. No more prompts, no more press 1s or any of that.
because the AI understands your question. It understands what department you're calling on. So like what I did is I went to call review, and I took my list of all of our agents in our BDC and all departments, and I uploaded it to AI. So when someone asked for somebody specifically or a certain department, the AI knew what to transfer it to. Now, Mike kind of dumbed that conversation down because technically when we set up an AI with him, we actually have many AI agents. The problem is you think you're talking to the same one because we keep the voice the same. We have an AI agent who is your phone operator, but that phone operator technically transfers it to the next agent who is your service scheduling agent. Even though it's the same voice, it instantaneously is really a different agent going off of a different program and a different set of protocols. So it knows if you say, I have a check engine light, then it's going to address that, find out the year, make, and model, find out what, availability it has. Like, let's say, how much capacity do I have on X amount a day? And then it knows how many people are working that day. And it'll give you your option of picking those dates. But if in that conversation, I were to say to that same AI, can you tell me what my trade is worth? A different agent in the same voice in seconds will then start asking the questions on KBB ICO and then type it in and then give you that ballpark in that range. If you flip the question and you say, I want a Carfax on a vehicle, a different AI agent then flips over. It's the same voice. You don't know what happened in that second, why you hear it typing, but then it's going to share with you the auto I packet. And then as you get sent the auto I packet, and as you click on different things in the auto I packet, what AI is then going to do, it's going to custom tailor the response to the CRM AI so that it can email you based on what you did in auto I packet. So it is a little bit more complex than what Mike's saying, because there's an AI technically agent for every department that we're building.
That kind of goes into what Tim was talking about is, you have, if you think of AI as a whole and you think of it kind of like a phone, you have an operating system like Apple. So here you have an Apple phone and it can do its Apple phone things, but then you get an app on your phone and that app can, do whatever you want for your app. You can listen to, hey, what song am I listening to app? You know, you have all these different apps, and each one of those has its own kind of a knowledge base and understanding of what it is of itself as an app. And if you think of an AI, it's kind of like that, where, if you ask the AI, what's the fastest lion in Africa? Well, the auto repair shop AI is not going to know that. In fact, none of our AIs will know that. But if you had an AI who is going to be, everything about cats and lions and stuff like that, then you could program that AI to really understand all that type of information. And so that's kind of where you have these different types and different levels, different knowledge, pyramids of what you're trying to learn. That's kind of what you were talking about, Tim, earlier.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, a lot of the work we're doing right now is, we talk about this a lot, is how do we take the top performer in an organization, right? If it's a business that has a call center and automotive, sometimes that's a BDC. We want to know who has the shortest call times, who has the highest NPS or CSAT score, who with the post call survey is getting the highest rating, kind of thing, right? And then from that, behaviorally, how do we model that person and their behavior, their data entry? What is it that they're doing most often? How quick are they making decisions? Then taking an open source model and being able to train it to only work within that boundary, right? And that way, everybody who's in the BDC or everybody who's in the contact center has a coworker. I won't use the other word that a certain company has already trademarked, but they have a coworker that's with them that is showing them in some semblance efficiencies. I won't call them best practices because that best practices don't exist anymore.
True.
Because the technology is moving so fast, the customer expectation is moving just as fast. So we can't think about it in terms of this is what everybody else is doing, we got to do it too. We got to think about that which is right there. But at the end of the day, it's about that first party information that you can create. And I'm looking at Mike when I say this, is having the AI trained on that which is extremely unique, almost like DNA, to that business, in this case, the dealer, they have a extremely interesting correlative relationship that happens between the employees, the product, the brand, the customer, perhaps the culture that's unique to the geographic area. And with that, you want the AI to understand that as best as possible, so that if you're going to employ it in many of the ways you already said, Mike, which I was nodding my head the whole time with a smile, that it's much more empathetic, right? It's extremely empathetic, and not only that, it is laser sharp when it gets into those escalation trees or those decision trees that you were talking about, handing off to another model, handing off to a human to handle whatever the transaction or whatever the appointment may be. The other side of that too is the deeper side of this, which is, where I think AI is really effective, is helping dealers just know their customers better than they already do. And it's everything we just talked about, right? In terms of the inbound call, but it's also the fact that many dealers have hundreds of thousands of contacts that were past customers, half build and price, test drive, other types of behavior, right? Somehow they got their data. How do they take that information from people that they haven't talked to in 4 or 5 years, and then reach out to people instead of just looking at intent data, instead of just waiting for the phone to ring? How do we reach out to people who we already know, that we already have? And you guys mentioned CRM a few times, but the CRM, the DMS, the marketing automation system, whatever it might be, we have their data. How do we teach the salespeople on the floor how to be empathetic and outreaching to these people and getting them back in the funnel, if we want to call it the funnel, or just engaging them to bring them back in? I think that's a big opportunity that's missed right now across the automotive industry, because it is so overbuilt for the top of the funnel. It's so overbuilt for the customer to do something and for them to react, when in fact the dealer has hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to make in just getting smart about the information they already have, or the intelligence, to really start to engage people they already know instead of waiting for them to engage them.
But if I may, to that end, Tim, and it's the first time you ever segued into anything, then I'm going to start with the word data, because that's your word. But we talk about how you have to have your data in order before, and you have to have your processes and your people in order, your accountability, et cetera, before you slap an A on it. But let's go a little bit deeper. My dream for the future is that there's going to be skeptical people that don't want to share their culture, their scripts, their this or that. When you want to fine tune these AI personas to fit the company culture and the different, like what I do with one of our companies is we do data analysis, but then we do the call review and we mesh them together, and we figure out where the pain points, we show them or corroborate what they said their pain points are, show them how to move that, right? So whether it's you're analyzing your marketing ROI, guys, gentlemen, Michael and David, by BDRs, by performance, or by lead sources, you have different little pieces you need for the different lead sources in order to convert the marketing that's come to the websites, third party or our own. How are we going to convert that to a low funnel opportunity and get them in the showroom or the service drive? We're going to have to train so many different things in AI. So wouldn't that be cool if we got the nuts and bolts, or like the basic, and then we empowered down the road our marketing directors and everybody else to go in there and do that stuff yourself. So you're not buying a package that's ready on the shelf that was built by somebody who's got a completely different set of experiences or demographic or lead sources or vehicle make or whatever. You're going to have a truly, truly custom tool that you're going to be able to help you to convert leads. But then also the sales piece, Tim. We've got so many COVID managers and salespeople that we talk about that don't know how to sell the appointment and not the car, and bring the customers in on the opportunities for vehicle selection and financing, so we can find the right vehicle at the right price that'll fit into your lifestyle and budget, right? So we have to, all this fine tuning in AI. So I'm like, already those of us that talk about it, it's exciting. So,
It is exciting.
but we first have to get buy-in, the same as we did with the BDCs.
I also think that if when you think about it, when you're talking about like how do you make it customized, so like just think as an AI, you have an AI, it's going to be different how it speaks. It's different accent, so if you're in New York or you're in Wyoming, you're going to have a different type of an AI, different way they're going to speak, different speed and the volume. I mean, there's a lot there. And then when you pull that down into all the other things that's really customized about whether you're a group or just you're one shop, or if you have 10 shops, you have that branding, and that AI is going to be part of your brand. And in the future, that's going to be actually an asset for the company, not only as the brand of an AI, but when you delve down into all the, hey, this is the AI, and you can have AIs with marketing. You can, that's what everybody used to know, but you have AIs now for accounting. You have AIs for, I mean, there's so many different things. I know, like, just to give you, where we're going, I think is, we're the DuPage Hospital around where I live. They're, the insurance companies want the doctors to check the AI with the prescriptions, and it's an insurance thing, right? Because if there's a bad, they give the bad prescription, right? And then if there's a lawsuit or something, it's like, well, you didn't check with the AI, and it's so cheap, and that could have prevented this mistake. And then you also at O'Hare Airport, I was just listening on the news today where they're talking about they have these airplanes traffic like on the ground, they're like running into each other, like they're plane traffic accidents, right? And what they're doing is they're using an AI system now to look at like the real-time radar of where all the planes are, to make sure that the planes aren't running into each other anymore, and how do you make them move faster and stuff like that. And that's one of the ways that their AIs are. I mean, so we're just in the baby BlackBerry stages of AI right now, and nobody knows where it's going to be going. But I think getting started, the early, bird gets the worm kind of thing. And, there was the people who first got online, they excel and did a lot better than those that refused to, change. And I think AI is like something that it's not just something that a business is going to use. It's something that the business is going to use. It's going to nurture it. And when they want to sell their business, it's going to be part of their brand. It's just going to be like the name on the door, or, it's just going to be part of like the website. It's an asset. The domain's an asset. People buy and sell domains. Well, you're going to have AIs that are going to be like, they're going to be valuable.
The AI is going to learn your business. So it's going to be your asset. So it's going to be your performance statement, but it's also got your history and your SEO and all your metrics, and knows your customer.
Your brand too. Yeah.
It knows your ordering and your stocking, knows your responses, knows you haven't seen that customer in 6 months, knows that customer declined service.
Well, that's what enterprise customer data platforms outside of and enterprise master data management outside of the automotive industry has already done, right? Has created a what private equity folks like to talk about. There's the balance sheet, there's EBITDA, and then there's the data. And the data will show you, right, what your acquisition cost really is going to be, or better yet, what your acquisition opportunity is going to be in terms of redundancy or net gain in a marketplace, or the quality of data and how much it's going to cost you to integrate the systems. It's everything you just said, David. I mean, this is about building value in the business. At the end of the day, it's what we're talking about, and what Paul loves to talk about is the value that we build with the customer, the value that we do, to as Wendy said it already before, it's about what happens in the experience of the appointment, not the fact that there's an oil change at the other end of it, right? It's about the relationship, and it's about, what the dealer has done to show that not only do they sell a lot, but they got a lot of people who keep coming back to them for more because they trust them, they have confidence in them, and by God, they're getting what they need from them. That's at the end of the day what we're talking about here, in the face of a whole lot of automation. So I'm digging everything Mike's saying, because he's sticking to the script that this is not about prompt engineering with coin operated browser bots. This is about things that are actually woven into business processes to make sure, first and foremost, the customer is getting what they need as quick and as accurately as they can, meaning having their needs met, and at the same time, having the dealer be able to operate more fluidly.
You know, I love what you guys are bringing to the table here, because there are so many dealers out there that just don't fully grasp just how much better they can make things for themselves. I mean, basic things, okay? I'm the kind of a guy that works around the clock. If I want to find something out at 2 in the morning, guess what? I want to find it out at 2 in the morning. I don't want to necessarily wait. And I've spoken with dealers that, hey, you know, I like having a human being, but it's only within so many hours. It's the internet, man. It churns 24/7. So here you have some software that can engage with all of your customers at any time, 24/7. And that handing off to the next expert thing, I mean, that is just so beyond, you know, what you don't know what you don't know for a lot of people to even grasp that. When you take the human element out of some of the mundane stuff, okay, it makes a huge difference, because I can tell you I've made many, many phone calls where I get transferred to someone who's clearly not capable of having that conversation. Whereas when it passes it off to the person that asks all of the instant cash offer questions and things like that, I mean, this is not, you know, this is not something new, okay? Decades ago, I was buying cars sight unseen over the phone by asking all the right questions. And when the customer came in for the final appraisal, almost 99% of the time I was within a nickel of what I quoted them on the phone, and I was able to justify in walking around with the customer exactly why the value was what it was, okay? But, you know, I'm a little curious, the voice being the same, can we make the voice different for the different departments, Michael?
Sure. I mean, you have different voices, you have different languages. So, like, one of the things that we get a lot is, like, especially, you know, where I live in the Chicagoland area, you know, there's a lot of Spanish people, there's a lot of, you know, Polish people, and there's all these different people with all these different languages. And when someone calls, and, you know, you should be able to answer their questions, and then AI can't speak all the different languages. So that's just another way of getting happy customers in.
Well, it's nice because you could be speaking it, and somebody could speak in Polish to the AI, and then it can translate to you on the other side, the BDC person, it in English so that you understand. And then when you respond to it, the AI then can translate it back in Polish. And we've all seen those type of Google translators, but can you imagine that it could do it through our phones or through a chat bot, and you could just be talking to somebody? So it's kind of interesting that we were studying that, because, you know, first, like 6 months ago, I wanted to look at a service scheduling product, and I wanted to break it. So I did hundreds of tests on how to break it. Now, you know, I'm teaching AI how to do the road to the sale, how to understand how to give a range on a trade-in, how to be a digital retailing tool, how to be a search box on a website, and how you can push a button and just ask a question that I want to speak to somebody about a job. I want to know my payments. I want a certain part. And it's very intuitive in just getting it to learn. But like I said, there's many different, I guess it's kind of like a tech stack within a tech stack, because there's just a lot of different agents to learn, and you can program it with all these different languages. You know, one of our big chores that when we were talking is they're like, oh, wow, we didn't think about Arabic and that there's different dialects. But then as we went into the different modules, we found that it has all that voice translation to it. It's just beyond even thinking about how it does it, but it's learning. We just have to do your due diligence with the right AI partner to make sure they're customizing it for your business, because, you know, the way things are done in Ottawa is a little bit different than the way it's done in the south side of Chicago or in the suburbs or at a Mercedes dealer versus a Kia dealership. You know, we're more a little bit heavy on payment, whereas they may be more heavier on a lease. So we need to just make sure our check and balances are done in its terminology. I haven't turned on the sales part to AI, because I haven't broken it enough. Even though the one I'm working with right now, which is Mike at AutoGenie, has an API with Auto iPacket. I just don't feel comfortable yet with 100% in sales. It'll schedule a test drive. It'll say that a vehicle's available, but truly, it's not sitting there with a used car manager. It's not sitting at the sales tower asking those questions. So we still have to figure out how can we text or prompt a manager about availability, or do we just assume it's available like most BDC people do and just schedule the appointment out and then call the customer back when we know it's really sold. And again, I don't think that's best practice, right, Wendy?
I'm just mesmerized by everything you're saying, and I'm just in awe. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, when I grow up, I want to be you. So if you don't have the answer today, I know you'll have it tomorrow. But I'm seriously, the idea that you get to do all this and figure out how to break it. I already want a closer look at what you guys are doing. But to your point, David, it all depends. But you have to, and you've got so many things firing off in my mind talking about dialects, like even Spanish. I use overseas Spanish speakers, and there are some that live in Spain that might sound different than those that live in Mexico or in Honduras, Nicaragua. Yep. Well, but I'm talking about the Spanish speakers, and my Filipinos too that speak Tagalog. But are they? Somebody from Manila is not going to sound like somebody from Visayas or whatever, or some little bitty province or whatever. And it's the same thing in Greece. When we lived in Greece, we were in an Athenian suburb. Well, the people in the little villages have a completely different dialect. So the beauty of AI is that it will adapt to whatever you need. And it's already so much faster than we even considered, David, when you talked about the concern about the dialect in Arabic. So point is, I think, well, to answer your question, that vehicle's, I see, I'm showing that vehicle is currently available. So I got you. And we have several close matches. So when can you come in? Yep. We have to get back to, here's the thing. What's going to benefit the salespeople is we're finally going to document our scripts and our beliefs and our handbook for the dealership and everything else, because other people are just winging it, or they're picking up bits and pieces from other newly anointed salespeople that are post-COVID, and they don't know how to sell an appointment or how to sell options. And the mindset of the salesperson is still, they want the warm body in front of them, and they don't want to bring them in. They want to pre-qualify them and make sure they're on a vehicle, and then they broom them off the lot if that vehicle's sold. Yep. So we need to adopt AI so that our users realize, and they're going to get their training through the conversations that they're witnessing with the customers. And then they're going to add the human the human element, and that's where the magic happens. When the humans collide.
Yep. We're already seeing that customers, not just customers, I mean, they get all their information off the internet, right? And they walk in and we feel that they're more knowledgeable than our sales staff. So that's one thing. But the problem is our sales staff are getting their knowledge from YouTube. They're learning from TikTok. They're learning from fake news. The problem is pre-COVID, and maybe it's been around for the past decade, but really during COVID, something happened where we forgot to train the trainers.
Right.
The trainers don't really train anymore. And so we need almost an AI to say, hey, we're holding you accountable, because somewhere up the chain, we forgot to train them how to hold you accountable and just treat people right and respond. And AI instantaneously will say, hey, you had 600 abandoned calls yesterday, and X amount were called back, and X amount only left a message, and you didn't call any of these people back. And here's all the people, and we already had this in call review for years and interactive tell, where it's told you all those keywords with people that said, hey, you didn't give me enough for my trade. Well, not AI is listening, but also AI, when people go to the search widget on their website or on the dealer's website. But then there's another component of it called AEO. So ask engine optimization is the future of SEO. So as people are asking ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and Copilot and all these fancy things questions, they're building a knowledge graph. and it's matching the data as where is the answer at? Oh, the answer exists at dealer A. And they've had recent conversations about dealer A, and it keeps tracking it, and it's readjusting its algorithm so that it can predict what you're going to do, show ads to people, figure out email responses, tell you when to call somebody, confirm an appointment. So AI is doing this so much faster because we get pulled at the sales tower at tons of directions. I remember when I'm appraising somebody's car, I'm working a deal and I got a customer gripe and the phone's ringing. And I'm going, crap. I have BDC angels listening to my call saying, you guys didn't get that call right. Well, I'm sorry. I'm 8 deals deep right now. And it's a busy Saturday. Well, I need AI to be that virtual assistant. I need somebody to handle some of those mundane tasks to just assist me. But I need the right partner. And hopefully with these conversations, we can narrow those right partners and we can figure out the right things for dealerships and recommend them and try it. But I think the key really is finding partnerships with an AI that is adaptable to
Right.
every dealership's needs.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think to a point Paul's already made. I mean, I think Paul's disposition is almost one out of frustration. You know that AI is everywhere, and it is, and it can provide benefit, and so many people in retail automotive are not employing it one bit. You guys in Chicago, you know, 13 years ago, I was working for Edelman. I was reporting. I've lived here in Austin, Texas, but flew every Monday and reported the duty on the 55th floor of the Aon Center, right there by Millennium Park, right? And back then, we were doing natural language processing, and we learned really fast that people on the north side of Chicago had a different dialect than people on the south side of Chicago, just on social listening, right? And what I'm trying to say in that with an example is that a lot of what's being used today is stuff that has been around and proven for over a decade. And there's a huge opportunity to incorporate it in terms of the workflows and the operations that we're discussing here. And I think that's the key part of this. The other thing is I'll just give a nod to what David was talking about in terms of ensuring that the AI that happens to us must be respected. And that is what Google, or let's be honest, what Alphabet and what Anthropic, what OpenAI, what Amazon is doing with its models as well. These are AI that are all of a sudden going to be in front of our customers' faces more than anything else. So on one, bullet number one is dealers have to understand that the competition is not the dealer they thought was the competition across town. It's Google, it's Amazon, it's these other folks that have the attention of the audience more than the dealer does. Secondly, is understanding that GA4, as an example, GA4 is not Google Analytics as you think it is. GA4 is a direct conduit from the content on your website to Gemini. It is built that way from day one. The popular narrative there was always about Google killing the cookie, right? They have a $27 billion kitty that they have to protect as they understand they're going to kill search and they're going to move to answers instead of search results, right? And the big thing they did was cutting off universal analytics and requiring everybody to use GA4 if you choose to use them. And as you do, the responsibility that the dealer is going to have fresh and authentic and utilitarian content on their website so that when somebody asks Gemini from their mobile device, from their watch, or from the smart speaker in their home, maybe their television, as they're asking it something, that it gives an answer that comes right to you. This will be different than keywords, but it'll be the same basic approach in terms of how we storytell and how we have something that the model will put in their answers or as in their responses to those prompts, which I believe are going to be primarily voice in a very short period of time, not this text thing that everybody's super excited about on LinkedIn every day. It's going to be that. So
Yeah.
You look at those two things. You have one, you can look 10 years, you can look 20 years behind this and understand how machine learning, and then what was AI models before there were generative models, what that was doing to change how people communicated, how brands communicated, and then where we're going next. There's very little time, and I'm trying to pour a little fire on, or a little more fuel on Paul's fire here, is that I don't think car dealers understand they have a very limited time to get their act together in terms of governing their data better and leveraging it with artificial intelligence to make a lot of these things happen, because it's going to be painfully obvious who does and who does not within the next 12 to 18 months.
I think
Yeah, I
what
would
we
say
need
6
to
months.
do, I think what we need to do is just kind of help them along and take them away from it's something to answer the call and route the call to something so much more. Okay, you guys touched on it earlier about proactively reaching out to people. You have databases that have tens of thousands of customers in it. Okay, this can do the farming, this can do the scraping. Okay, I look at data all the time and I compare dealer A to dealer B to the 4, 5, 6, 700 different dealerships. And I said, look, we can look at these metrics here. And I like to look for outliers, things that you're doing either way better than somebody else, or you're doing way worse than somebody else, or even the ones where you're doing the same as everybody else. Do you want to be the same? Okay, we're talking about some technology that can analyze your database, scrape social, find out changes in people's lives, and then make predictive marketing opportunities happen where you have something that would enhance their life or make their life better, which is something that at the dealer level right now, if you're not leveraging that kind of technology, let's face it, a salesperson today, I don't know what happened to the phone and the salesperson. There seems to be a disconnect, pun intended, because it seems as though they make 4 phone calls, they get 4 no's. This phone sucks. They're not doing that. Whereas here you have this software that you can program to do things more efficiently. And the language thing, I absolutely love. Okay, take for instance the Hispanic marketing opportunity, projected to be $3.2 trillion with a T. A loyal market like nobody's business. You have technology in place that you're able to communicate with these different communities, because it's not one generic Hispanic community. It's many different ones with different dialects and different things that are important, but each one has their own tribe that if you cater to them will bring you just so much more business. So I get so stoked about this because it's beyond what we can even imagine right now. That's how strong it is. And that's just a small piece of what it's capable of.
Well, that's what you just spoke about, Paul, is the diversity in the audience, right? The diversity in the audience has been over politicized in a lot of narratives, but at the end of the day, how do you build diversity in revenue is by respecting the diversity in the audience. So to how you led off, I mean, this is where customer data platforms, not just in marketing automation, but in terms of digging deep in your data to understand that you don't just have 10 personas. You don't have just 15 different kinds of people that buy from you. You actually have thousands of different archetypes. And guess what? You as a human, you're never going to figure that out by
Never.
yourself. A data analyst by themselves is not going to. But AI is here and machine learning has been there to help you find those needles in the haystack, find those cohorts of 200 people there and 1,000 people there and 10,000 people there that guess what? The majority of them, after you sold them a car, you haven't done one thing to reach out to them. And that to me is the thing that's missing the most. And I'll really punctuate it here. When I was I had the opportunity, I was honored to speak at Autovate in Scottsdale. Just what was that, 3 weeks ago? Wendy, was that what, 3 or 4 weeks ago? And is Cliff Banks event, right? And basically, I heard two different white hair, blue suit dealers who got up on stage and said, "You know what's funny? We're sitting here talking about technology and AI, and we're all still talking about each rep on the show floor selling 10 units per month. And guess what? In 1984, we were talking about 10 units per month per person. AI has to take us in a different direction. And I think what you just hit on, Paul, understanding the breadth of information, which is intelligence that exists in the organization, the more rooftops you have, the more locations you have, the more brands you serve, the more geographic expanse that you operate in, that increases the richness of the opportunity for you to spend probably less chasing people on intent signals, which is whatever. There's thousands of platforms. We're less than a month, or we're just right out a month from landing in New Orleans, where the whole exhibit floor, every other, or at least 2/3 of everybody who's there is all about the intent, the inbound, the reaction opportunity that you have, when in fact you're sitting on something already that can lift your business guaranteed 20-30%, guaranteed.
Develop the market. Don't wait for it. Don't wait for somebody to come knocking. You have all of the tools available today to dominate your market, to do things that you're not doing now. You're not even thinking of doing now.
Unfortunately, we get a lot of high dollar training, and then we do it for 30 days, we do it for 60 days, and then all of a sudden it just gets forgotten. And it's simply because there isn't something that keeps us, on the right path. We get a new tool like an X-Time service scheduling tool. And then we get then we use the iPad to go around and inspect a vehicle with a customer. And then we get it to where the mechanic can actually send over a video to a customer for the repair and approve it. And then we have the ability to text a customer their bill, so that before they ever get to the dealership, they can review their bill and they can Apple Pay for it. And then all they really have to do is just walk in and pick up their keys, right? So there's all these steps that happened, and it's great at the beginning of the training. I looked at 7 locations of ours, and only 2 out of the 7 in the past year have used all those products. Even though they were all trained on it, I said, what the hell happened? So now I have to get them back out to train us. And it's just the human error and resistance to just meet the customer at either their level, at the door, greet them, meet them online, answer the call promptly, correctly, and do the follow-up. To me, the biggest point on the internet that I have as a pain point is really just ease to do business with us and follow up, so that we're on the same page to them with everyone. It's just being a good concierge. I mean, to me, when I was thrust into a BDC and they said, hey, David, I understand you're the used car director right now, but the BDC director just left and went to Auto Alert. You have her job right now too. And I went, whoa, I don't know anything about BDC. Now, luckily I went into a BDC and every manager was really good, but our main goal was only one thing: treat the people right, be a good concierge, and just make an appointment and just follow up when we need to. And then call the people back that we haven't seen in a while for service or sales. So it wasn't rocket science. But once we just followed it, we put those kiosks up and we started watching our results and we started listening to our phone calls. And then we made it mandatory to do confirmation calls for our appointments. Then all of a sudden our sales grew. And we went, wow, we really did something. And I said, no, we just kind of did the things we always should have been doing. But now we need AI to teach us how to do all that again.
Yeah.
So I want to change the way we look at things. We tend to huddle and talk about the things that happened to us. Right. We tend to talk about the things that we missed. I want to refocus, retool. Okay, I want to set up kind of focus groups within the dealership and say, look, here are our core services. Here's where we want to go. Here are our current products. Here are the products that's coming. Here's our database that has all these diverse people in it. I want to start with the end in mind. I want to see, where do we want to take our business on the sales side? Where do we want to take our business on the service side? And then together with the technology, craft a plan to have the technology move us in that direction rather than just wait for people to come in. I want to proactively start reaching out and placing cars and setting up future service. And that's the kind of stuff it sounds like you guys are doing every day.
Well, I think we're forced to create growth. You know, something that Tim was talking about a little bit, though, that I was thinking about reflecting, because Michael brought it up too the other day. We started talking about data, and we started talking about collecting data and about what to use it. And that, you know, AI is really the part that collects all the data for every department that we touch, that all of us touch, right? But that information of all these different departments, if all the different agents communicate, or if you have an agent for every department and all the agents communicate to each other, and they're communicating everything with Gemini, and then we build our websites, which will probably be obsolete at one point anyway. They'll probably just be an AI agent that we just talk to. And it gives us the answer. It'll tell you how many red Corvettes we have in stock, or how many cars have a bad Carfax. And it'll tell us, you know, on a used car manager side, what's my holding cost and what vehicles are over MMR by a certain percentage. But if you have all this information, and, you know, the old SEO is kind of dead. Now it's more about your schema, and it's more about, you know, it's not about keyword stuffing anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of,
you know, and that's Michael's area.
Well, Tim, you talked about that before, is how, you know, you're talking about GA4 and, you know, Google Search Console and other different stuff. Like, how does Gemini get the information, or the other AIs? How do they get the information to have trust in it? Because obviously the AIs all be giving out like weird stuff. You know, you ask a question and it comes up with the wrong stuff. And so one of the things that they're struggling with is, you know, how do we find the right information, and how do we know it's correct? How can we trust that? And that's where you get back to the whole, you know, quality score, domain ranking, page ranking, and then in there you have all that schema and, you know, the structured data. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, you know, here's a container. It's on a website. We trust this website. We know they're a car dealership. And they're, you know, here's a whole bunch of a schema all about, you know, brake repair for whatever, you know. And so now that becomes like a rich snippet. And when you qualify for that, you now qualify for a Gemini search result. Because if you have content on your website and it's not eligible, you know, then you're not going to be able to show up as a reference for any Gemini stuff at all.
And 70% of dealers don't.
Either. It's like you're not even there because you're not trustworthy.
70% of dealers' websites don't qualify right now for Gemini for you know, their ask search or ask engine optimization or answer engine optimization. Most dealers don't realize it is the basic schema that a dealer has is, this is your name, this is your address, and this is your phone number. And that's it. And we just looked at that. I just looked at that at a friend's website and went, oh my God. You know, I said, you know what? I said, let me show you something with Mike. So I got Mike and he showed us, and he goes, well, here, look at this dealership. And let's pull them up on the screen side by side. And Mike, you can elaborate on this. What was the difference between the two websites? And then how did it become Gemini compliant?
Well, you know, it's a lot of companies, the bare minimum is just, you know, you slap on a widget that says schema, and now every single page of your website has, you know, the basic schema being like, you know, your website, and here's your address, phone number, something basic, and every page is the same. Where when you have, you know, structured data, which AI uses the same type of schema markup, you know, they're all using the same one. And it used to be voice schema, and they're just basically, if you think of, you know, Alexa and, you know, Google Home, which they're no longer, and Siri, they're not even updating them anymore because they're coming out with a new form, and the new form
is just not intuitive.
Be using this voice structured data, which is basically like the same as AI, and so you're basically, I mean, encoding your website and giving it trust and authority, so that when the AI is doing it, wants to understand who can I trust. And so the AI is kind of like a baby too, because you could be a dealership and be like, well, do you guys have a driveway?
But Mike, doesn't that
parking lot.
match?
Can
Doesn't
we
that
drive
match
there? Like,
performance
it doesn't
max,
know, but
though?
you have to explain that.
So doesn't the Gemini search words and schema and all that? And again, I you're the expert on this, I'm not. But just thinking about it as we're talking, though, so Gemini has all this knowledge, right? But doesn't vehicle listing ads and performance max work in 5-mile increments? And doesn't it speak to Gemini? So it can present ads?
Well, that's, we're talking about the advertising side of it.
Right.
So Gemini isn't serving ads yet. But
Not yet.
But it will.
It will be.
So
and it will be
I
coming.
have an interesting thing that happened in one of my BDMs. I'm hearing a pixel, or is that my voice, or am I clear? Am I clear?
You're clear to me.
Clear for me.
Okay, cool. All right. So one of my BDMs, she has her team using Blaze AI, which is in the Google suite, right? And so I don't know if this has to do with the GA4 stuff Tim mentioned, what you guys mentioned, but when they were trying to do research to find the right vehicle with certain options within their own inventory, because they've got just the public free version of whatever it is, it came up with vehicles from a competitor website in their geographic area. It was really interesting. So maybe that's what you're talking about how maybe that other competitor had their website optimized better. I don't know, Tim, does that?
Well, I mean, you hear us talking, and it could be 2013 or 14, and we're talking about websites being penalized in search results because they're not responsive yet. Remember? I mean, you remember when, and we still run into it today, about 1 out of every 10 websites you go to, you've got to pinch and zoom, and you've got to do the drop down, and then you've got to pinch and zoom and scroll back up to where you were before because it wasn't optimized for a mobile device. This is a hard turn. I mean, it's a hard turn for the hyperscaler provider, which is Google we're talking about, right? They've got to do the balancing act here. They got to keep people using Google while they get everybody starting to use Gemini at the same time. Again, they've two things, right? The Google executives, the C-suite there has said that they will bankrupt the company before they lose the AI race. They're not going to lose it to OpenAI. They're not going to lose it to Amazon. They're not going to lose it to Apple, or Meta for that matter, right? I mean, we haven't talked too much about Meta. We haven't talked much about Facebook here, but they're a bit of a thorn, a co-operator for everybody, right? I mean, can't live with them and you can't shoot them. But at the end of the day, just explaining co-operator for people. But at the end of the day, I think there is that, which is I've heard David say it a few times, and that is, if dealers are focused on the relationship, if they're focused on empathy, which is not being an a-hole and being nice and being thoughtful and going the extra mile to understand a customer before you try to sell to them, understanding a customer before you try to convert them, to understand the importance of that first. There's a whole lot we're talking about here that, David, you hit the nail on the head. It's tough to train people up on how to use technology. It's tough to get people to change what they do. And if we can just get them to the brass tacks of fantastically thoughtful customer experiences, that which comes up behind them from an automation or an insight delivery or actionable insight standpoint should be a little bit more easy to employ or easy to leverage, or fluid. Let's not use easy because it's still change. I think there's that opportunity. I mean, the last thing I'll say is, one of the things that we're also talking about here is we need the DMSs to understand that the Authenticom Fortellis arrangement with CDK is good. It's a great step in the right direction, but it's not what dealers need to be able to really leverage all the data that's in the DMS. I've had some fantastic conversations with Reynolds lately, and they're continuing to merchandise what they do from an API access standpoint. And they understand and they fully respect that there will become a day when they need to have fluid, real-time read and write between what happens in their products and everything else that's happening in the dealer. So, this is a march. It's not just the dealer's responsibility. It's not just the change agents like David is, and Mike is coming in as the enabler with AutoGenie. I want to make sure I got that right. AutoGenie. I've already sent him a LinkedIn request right on this call and said we got to talk. But bottom line is we all got to work together on this. I think and the last person I'm going to mention by name here is Wendy, because this is exactly what her Wednesday Human Side of AI Clubhouse room is all about. It's not perfect. It's not exactly uniform. It's an open forum for people to talk about. Sometimes a guest speaker who does all but demo their technology for us, but many times just people talking about how AI is changing how they work, what their concerns are about, or what we all feel about an announcement that someone made over the past week. We all have to march together on this, and we all have to basically see what we can do to use it better. And where I started off with that, just to be more thoughtful, because AI is not going to replace us. It shouldn't replace us, and it should only make us have better relationships with our customers.
Agreed.
Wow. We covered a lot of stuff here. A lot of stuff. So I want to thank you guys for being on. I think we only scratched the surface really on all of the stuff that's already here and more of it that's coming. If anyone out there, whether they watch it live or on the replay, if we're not connected and it's relevant, by all means, send us a connection request. There's so much more to it. And the only way to really find out where you stand in it is to have a conversation, right? Then you'll know, hey, I've either got everything covered or there's some opportunity for improvement. And that's where networking is beautiful, because we all put our heads together. Everybody learns something from somebody. And between 5 of us on screen here tonight and the people that watch it now or on the replay, there's so many more conversations to be had. Any final thoughts? Because we've gone over the hour, but any final thoughts before we close it out?
Somebody asked during the podcast or the show that could the on-hold music be customized to the person that was asking the question when they called the dealership with the AI. My answer to them is there is no on-hold music, because you're instantaneously sent to the right person, into the right department. AI doesn't put you on hold.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a lot of the podcasts I do or as a guest. I mean, I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and my parents always drove a Cadillac or a Sewell, and always came from one place. It came from Sewell, and that was it. Is for as long as I can remember, my dad never called the dealer. He called a person,
Yep.
and he called that same person, check engine light, or buy a new car, or get an oil change, or find out more about some new model he heard about. It was one person he called. He never called and dialed 1 for sales and 2 for service. He called a person. We're back at that, right? We're back at that moment where we can do this. The thing I'll say to everybody is, your first party data, the data that you have today, is your ticket to the future. You may not be selling cars 5 years from now. You may be managing fleets, but you'll always be managing relationships. The data you have from your customers, that is your ticket to whatever happens next, whether you control it or it happens to you. That's all I'll say.
Got it. Well said.
All right.
My
Thank
final
you,
word.
everybody. Go ahead.
My final word would be, always remember the human side. First and foremost.
Michael?
I would just say, it's like what I think David had said, it's not replacing us. It's really, I use AI all the time, and we use it for, computer programs, and just for so many different things. It's just like, you used to have a computer and you have a calculator. It's the AI is just a bigger, better calculator, and you should be using it for so many different things in your life, and also for business. I mean,
All right, close us out, David.
It shouldn't replace us. It should just shape us.
Yeah.
Amen.
Makes us better.
Thank you,
All
everyone.
right. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
guys.
Have
Merry
a
Christmas,
safe and
everybody.
successful next week. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Thanks for watching.
Take care.